The interesting thing about lookup rows is with that one function, you will get to learn additional 3 or 4 additional functions because when you use lookup rows, these additional functions will be required most of the times to get your relevant data. So let's look at how lookup rows, how the syntax is. It's the syntax is easier than lookup. It takes only 3 parameters or 3 arguments which are required, and the rest are optional. The first argument is the name of, obviously, the name of the data extension. Like I mentioned, lookup and lookup rows are 2 functions which will allow you to pick up data from any data extension. So it's not necessarily the data extension which is connected to the email, the sending data extension. You can pick up data from any other data extension which is not connected. So that's why obviously this function will also need to know the name of the data extension. It will need to know the name of the column, right? So this is something which we did in lookup as well. So which rows are needed to be retrieved? So you need to know the name of that column. So for example, last time we did something like quality, right? So the quality was the name of the column. So in the same way, the name of the column, and then the value that identifies the rows. So that one value, which you can store in a variable, or you can put the value directly over there, which will allow you to scan and pick up those relevant rows. Now, the chief difference between lookup and lookup rows is in lookup, the output will be one value. The example which we did last time, where I displayed the value of quality, quantity, shift, adherence, things like that. Remember, we were doing the scorecard last time. So we are able to pick up one single value using lookup. In lookup rows, it picks up in this term, we call it an array, or you can call it a subset. So it will pick up the entire row instead of just one single value. So if your data extension has, say, 20 columns, the subset which is created when you run the lookup rows function will be, like, you can say, a temporary data extension, which will have the same 20 columns, but the number of rows will be lesser. So we did examples of filtered data extension last time. In filtered data extension, what I showed you was I have a regular data extension, then I create a filter using some criteria, and then you get a filtered data extension, which is exactly like the main data extension. Only difference is it will be lesser number of rows. The rows will only be those values which are satisfying the criteria. So lookup rows is actually quite similar. You are creating a temporary filtered data extension at runtime. When you say runtime, is basically when the email is running or executing. That is what lookup rows actually does. I'll give you an example. We'll work on an example so that you guys can understand what I mean by this. Give me one moment. Let's see let's use something similar like yesterday, like that day. Sorry, yesterday we didn't have a session. Let's go to email studio. Let's create a new email actually. Let's use the data extension which had a lot of data. I think I have something here. Yeah, let's use the same data extension. Yeah, let's use this. So this is my employee data, which has basically employee code, name, email address, vertical, program name, process name, subject, sub-process, sorry, and designation, right? So this is my data extension. We saw this one that day. So this one has different designations, senior analyst, right? Things like that. Let's do one thing. What we'll try to do is we'll use this as a sending data extension. And what we'll do is for all records, so it will obviously pick up records one by one. So for each record, let's say the first record, he's a senior analyst, right? So what we'll do is we will pick up from another data extension. So let's say let's use this data extension. So from this data extension, what we'll do is, I think there's designation here also, right? So basically, if that person is a senior analyst, what we'll do is we will pick up the person's colleagues, right? So if the person is a senior analyst, then the output in the email should be a list of people who are of the same designation. So which is senior analyst. If it is an analyst in the sending data extension, then the output in the email should be a list of people who are at a analyst level. Let's use that as a use case. So let's build a new email. Let's say create email. I'll put it in the correct folder. Okay, so everybody knows first thing is I'll put an HTML block where I will put my block AMP code. And then I'll put a text block below it where I'll get the output. Okay, so let's start with the AMP script. So everybody remembers I start the block with percentage open bracket. Now let's think about variables. Now this is my data extension from where the data will be displayed on the email. Now I would like to display the colleague, right? So the person is in the sending data extension. So that person's colleagues who are over here. So I'd like to display their name, and I would like to display, let's say, the quantity score. These two values I would like to display. Let's say we want to do that. So that means I need two variables, one to store the name, one to store the quantity score. These two variables are definitely required. Next, in the sending data extension, I will be taking the designation from the sending data extension, and then using lookup rows, I will be comparing it over here. So that means I need a third variable which will store the designation from the sending data extension. So right now I can think of three variables. So let's declare them. So I have the name, I have quantity score, and I have designation. So these are three variables which I can think of. Now, first thing is I am going to set the value for designation. Remember, designation value is coming from the sending data extension. What is the value? Let's see what is the value. So that is coming from the employee data extension. It is desig, DESIG. So the designation value from the sending data extension is stored in this variable. The next thing now is I need to use the lookup rows function. Now, as I mentioned, the lookup rows function will create a temporary data extension, a filtered data extension. So I need to store that. So I'm going to store that in a variable. Let's call it rows, ROWS. Okay, now I'll be using the lookup rows function. Remember, the first parameter is the name of the data extension. Now my data extension, this is the sending data extension. So my data extension is called raw, RAW. Okay. Now, the second parameter, if you remember, is name of the column that identifies the rows to retrieve. Now, if I go to my raw data extension, where is the designation stored? So I have a column here called desig, DESIG. So that is parameter argument 2, DESIG. And the third one, the third argument is the value. Now, remember, the value is being stored in this variable. This is the value from the sending data extension. That's how I'm comparing. So at SIG. Now, when I run this one, what's going to happen is at rows will get a temporary data extension, which will have the same columns as the raw data extension. Only thing is it will only contain those rows or of data which are meeting this condition of designation. Now, I'm going to introduce a new function. It's called row count. Now, what does the row count function do? A row count function, as the word suggests, it calculates the number of rows which are present in this temporary data extension. It is important to have this function simply because if I don't have data, right? If this function, the lookup rows, because of this condition, if it comes out with blank data, then ideally I don't need to proceed, right? I don't need to proceed with more coding. I don't need to proceed to display because it's blank data, right? I need to actually just either skip the record or just say no records are available or no data is available. There's nothing to actually display if there is no data in that temporary data extension. So in order to do that, I need to count the number of rows which is there in this at rows data extension. So for that, there is a new function called row count. Obviously, the count has to be stored in a variable. So I'll need one more variable. I'm going to call it also at row count. And I will now set at row count equal to, the function is called row count, and it only takes one parameter. You want a row count of what? So I want a row count of this one, at rows. So this output will be a number, basically how many records have been retrieved based on this condition. Now I'm going to use an if then condition. if at row count is greater than 0, then. So the next set of operations I'm only going to perform if there is some row count. Otherwise, there's no point doing, as I mentioned, there's no point doing this next set of operations. Next set of operations will, as I mentioned, is to display it in your email, the name, the quantity score, right? That's the next set of operations. Now, remember I told you there'll be multiple rows which will be retrieved. I will have to traverse each row. The rows will be equal to this, right? So if this is my raw data extension, the columns will be the same, but the rows will be whatever is matching the designation. So what I'll have to do is, suppose 5 rows are retrieved. I'll have to traverse each row one by one and pick up the name and pick up the quantity score and display it in the email, right? In order to do that, I will now use a loop. There is this loop function which is very famous in all programming languages. It's called a for next loop. If people have done programming in the past, then they would be quite familiar with the for next loop. The for next loop, what it does is, as long as it's satisfied, the loop conditions are satisfied, whatever is between for, it starts with for, ends with next. So whatever is between for and next, it keeps repeating those activities again and again until that condition of the for loop is becomes non-satisfied. So it'll do the activity once, automatically increment, do the activity second time, third time, fourth time, fifth time, sixth time, until it is not satisfied. I will explain it to you by code, and then we can, I can take questions if you have on for next loop. Now, in order to run the for next loop, I will also need another variable. Why? Because for next loop also has counts. It's like a counter which auto increments because of the loop. So I have to store the counts in a variable. I'll say X for now. And now the loop. So the function is like this: for at X equal to 1, 2 at row count, do. Now, what does this line mean? That means the value of X at X, it will begin with 1. It will start with 1, and it will take values from 1 to whatever is the value of this row count. Now, let's assume in my earlier example, I said maybe it's retrieved 5 records. So if row count is 5, then the value of X will vary from 1 to 5. So in the beginning, it will start with 1. And then whatever I write after this, it will do those activities. Then when it encounters next, which is the end of the loop, it will again come up here, but it will come here and it will go to the next number. So it is 1, then it will become 2. Once it becomes 2, it will again come down and again perform the same activities. Like that, it will keep on doing it until it becomes 5. Remember, it is 1 to 5, right? So once it becomes 5, it will perform the activities, but it will not then become 6. Once it reached 5, because my row count is 5, after it performs the activities for the 5th time, it will end the loop. So that is the advantage of the for next loop. It allows you to do multiple activities recurring. You can do the same activities as many number of times you want it to do, and it has an auto increment facility. So it keeps incrementing it. So it's like an automated loop which keeps performing the same activities, and you can give the conditions right on top here, which I've done over here. Now, what are the activities I would like it to perform? I said, right, I'll have to traverse the subset or traverse the filtered data extension, temporary filtered data extension, locate the name, and locate the quantity score. So these are the 3 activities I wanted to do. So first, let's do the traversing activity. How do you do the traversing activity? I'll have to pick up row wise. So I'll need one more variable. I'm going to call it row. Variable called row. So I'll say set at row equal to, now there's another function called row. If I come here and I put a function called row, return the specific row from a row set. Row set basically is your temporary data extension. It takes two arguments. So name of the row set and the second argument is the position of the element. These are the arguments it takes. So I'll say set at row equal to row. That's the function. Now, where is my row set? My row set is here. This is my row set. So at rows. And now, which row do I want to pick up? I want to pick up the first row. So at X. So this is going to pick up the first row because X value is 1. When the loop ends, the first round ends, X becomes 2, then it will automatically pick up the second row. When X becomes 3, it will automatically pick up the third row, fourth row, fifth row, and then it will end. So in this way now, my first thing of traversing the temporary data extension, this is what will help me traverse all the rows one by one of the temporary data extension. Now this is traversing. What is the second thing I wanted to do? I wanted to pick up the name. Now, how do I pick up the name? Now this is another function called a field function. Now remember, when it is a proper data extension, then I can use a lookup function. But when it's a temporary data extension, I can't use a lookup function. There is a simpler function called field. So how do I use field? So I will say set at name equal to field. Field function is very simple. You give the which row you want to pick up. Remember, it is right now here. This is the first row. So I'll say at row, comma, and what I want to pick up. So now I have to just give the column name. So if you see the field function, if you see the arguments it takes, it takes 3 arguments, but the third one is optional actually. So the row set, name or position. You can ignore the last one for now. So I've given the row set, which is row. And now I need to give, it's called name, right? I want to pick up the name. So it's called name, N-A-M-E. I'll do the same thing for quantity. Copy it here. At quantity. What is the name of the attribute? It's called quantity only. Now, once it does this, I would like to display it on the here. In fact, I can display it here itself. So how do I display it? First of all, in order to display it, let us shut the block coding. Come down here and I will say name. Everybody knows how to do this one. I've shown this to you many times. Percentage equal to v at name equal to percentage. I know a little bit of HTML, so I'm putting BR. BR basically stands for break. So it'll go to the next line. Quantity score. Again, it's the same way. Now, this will display. Now, obviously, it's the loop, right? So for ends with a next. Obviously, I need to have a next. So let's put the next now. So when it comes to next, it will basically increment the value of x from 1 to 2, then 3, then 4, then 5. So it's going to keep doing this. It's going to keep displaying the first row data, then second row data, third row data, fourth row data, fifth row data. That's the idea of doing it this way. Obviously, I've ended the for with a next. I also have an if. I need to end the if also with an end if or an else and then end if. So I'll just put an end if for now. I think this should do it, unless I made a mistake somewhere. Let's see how it works. You don't need this actually for now. Okay, let's see how this looks like. Now, this person, Sampada Kakade, it's a senior analyst. So what it is doing is it is picking up all relevant entries from this raw data extension whose designation is senior analyst and displaying the name and the quantity. So this first Zubaida is a senior analyst. So name is displayed and quantity is 25. Then the next senior analyst would have been Tushar with quantity again 25. So if you see, this is what it is doing. So it is going to pick up only those records which have the same designation as your sending data extension, and it is going to display it wherever you would like to display it. Now, if I go to the next, this is an analyst. So what it's going to do is it will pick up all the other people who are analysts and display the data over here. Senior analyst, there'll be an associate process manager also. I think that's a little down. So I have some API, associate process managers. So it's displaying all the records of people who are associate process managers. So this is a good example of lookup rows. It has a lot of functions, but the only reason we are using these functions is because you need to. It's logic, right? You use lookup rows, so you got a subset. After you get a subset, you need to start breaking it up row by row. After you break up row by row, you need to start picking up at a single attributes of that row. So that's why we have so many functions which we are using, especially when we are doing lookup rows. Any questions? Any doubts?
Hello.
Yeah.
Yes, I could just explain after quantity that dollar next and if can you just explain one more time that one?
Sure. So the for loop, this is a loop, right? For x, for at x.
Yes.
This loop ends with a next. That's why I put the next on.
Okay.
If I put the next on top here, instead of here, what's going to happen is it's going to end the loop, but it will not be able to display anything.
Okay, so if you want to display anything, so we have to use after next name or content after it,
Yeah, I
right?
want to display it continuously, right? That's why you're getting multiple records. If I put the next on top here, it will only display the last record.
Okay. So here we cannot use a iteration something I plus plus. It's different.
You can do that, but then you don't need to use the for loop. What you can then do is you set the variable as 1,
Okay.
and then you'll have to, after coming here, after coming here, you will have to say, you'll have to increment the value of I by 1. So plus plus, sorry, in
Right.
the brackets you'll have to do. So bracket I comma 1, you'll have to do that, right? And then you'll have to have an if then condition. So you'll have to have a condition before this saying if I is greater than row count.
Okay.
So you'll be putting many more lines of code. All that can be eliminated by using this simple for loop.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much, sir.
You can definitely do it with adding +1, but then it's more manual. You'll have to have one more if then loop, things like that.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other questions?
No, sir.
All right. Okay, great. Great. So this is an example of, like I mentioned, lookup rows. In your regular production work, you will have a lot of cases where you will be using lookup or lookup rows, and obviously then the other functions which go along with them, the if condition, the for condition, the row, field, all those. But normally these are the two big functions which you will generally use everywhere. Cool then. What we're going to do next are we're going to start. Ideally, we would start cloud pages. We don't have too much time. I know we started the session late today. I was a little busy with some other meetings. So I'm going to end today. I would like you guys to digest lookup rows. I'll see if I can give you an assignment on lookup rows so that you guys can practice. But what we'll do tomorrow is we will do something called content data extensions. Before we start cloud pages, I would like to take up a topic of content data extensions. Just to give you a gist of what content data extensions do, they are basically non-sending data extensions. So don't get confused by I'm saying content data extension. They're just non-sendable data extensions. But the advantage of these non-sendable data extensions is that they store values, they store URLs, they store image URLs, and you are able to pull them using the lookup function directly in your email. So what's going to happen is, I know there are some people from email ops in this session. So today what happens is if you have to create a campaign which has emails for English, Chinese, Japanese, and let's say Indonesian. So 4 languages, right? English, Chinese, Japanese, and Indonesian. So you have 4 languages. So what you would normally do is you will create 4 emails. In the first email, you will copy English content. Second email, you'll copy Japanese, then Chinese content. And like that, you will copy manually all the content in each email. And that's why you'll have 4 emails. Now, when you have 4 emails, obviously the maintenance becomes tougher, because any small change, if it comes, then you have to make changes across all the 4 emails. So obviously maintaining all 4 become tough. That's why in Marketing Cloud, we have this concept of content data extension where you can do the same thing, but using 1 email. So you just create 1 email, and then using lookup and some other functions, you'll be able to pick up all these translated elements directly from your data extensions and put it in your email at runtime. So, maintenance becomes easier. Um, if today we have 4 languages, if tomorrow the marketer says, oh, a new language has come, I want to do in French, for example. Today, what you'll do is you'll create another email only for French. But when we do content data extensions, all you need to do is just create a new entry for the French language, and then your existing email automatically picks up French as well. It's a very interesting concept. We introduced it first for one of our clients called, I think, Uber or Grab. And from there, we have been using it across all our clients. I'll be running you guys with that tomorrow. Once we finish that, we will then start cloud pages. Right, guys? I'm going to end today. Again, apologies, we started late. Couldn't do much. My previous calls just didn't end. But yeah, tomorrow we'll pick up content data extensions and then we'll continue from there. Thank you, guys.
Thank you,
Thanks,
sir.
Mir.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hello, Mir sir.
Yeah, Kevin.
So from where we can able to access our recording part?
So, do you have a PayPal ID? What do you have?
I have PayPal ID.
PayPal ID, right? So, I have been storing it on Dropbox.
Okay.
And I also have been putting it on YouTube. So I think last week I sent some YouTube links for 4 recordings. So you can pick it up directly from there. Today I'll send the 5th or 6th link, whatever this is.
So you're sending on in this group only or somewhere different?
Yeah, I'm sending emails only for all of you guys. You'll be getting it.
Okay.
Yeah, or else if you have access to Dropbox, then it is stored in Dropbox. Dropbox, I mean, it gets updated. You can just access those video recordings. Like, I don't know if you guys,
No, we
do you
don't
have
have
access to Dropbox?
No, sir, we don't have. We have
No,
only
but-
Outlook.
No, but Dropbox, like I have created like, if you have the link, you'll be able to access it directly. Like if you see, this is the, so if you see, I have given you guys this link, right? If you see this, no, sorry. I have given you guys access to this folder. So anybody with a, 1 second, why is my Dropbox not connected? Sorry, my bad.
Okay.
So if you see, I have given you guys access to this folder. And I think, yeah, it's anyone. So basically this link is there. This link, if you want, I'll send it again on this chat.
Yes, sir.
Right. So this link will have all your, so just copy this right now. I'm sending it on the chat.
Okay, sir.
Just copy it. But basically this folder has all the recordings.
Okay.
So today I will put day 5. The same recording is going on YouTube as well. So, but this one you don't need any credentials. You just click on the link and you can then download or view.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much, sir.
All right then. Bye guys. Have a
Bye.
good day.
Thank you, sir.